Hello दोस्तों, I am going to start a new series on basic electronics engineering. In that, I will tell you everything about the semiconductor and its application. So let's start with some basic concepts of electronics. The very first concept is a signal. So the signal is a quantity that changes with the time and carries the information from one place to another place. So for example, the sound waves, radio signal, voltage signal, etc. These are the various types of the signal examples which carries the information from one place to another place with the time. There are two types of signal. The first one is an analog signal and second one is a digital signal. Analog signal is a continuous in nature while digital signal has only two levels, 0 and 1. So analog signal can change smoothly and digital signal can change suddenly with the values of zeros and 1. For example of analog signal is a sine wave and for digital signal we can say it is a discrete signal. So again there are some different types of the analog signal that are the sine wave, square wave, triangular wave. So the square wave and the digital signal are both different because a square wave is a periodic wave and digital signal, that is a discrete signal, is a non-periodic wave. So the term related to the waveforms are amplitude, then time, frequency, wavelength and phase. So as you can see in figure, the sine wave is representing the number of terms like amplitude, wavelength, phase, time period and frequency. So what is the amplitude? Amplitude is a maximum value of waveform and the amplitude is usually measured in volts, means from the x-axis, means from the 0 to the highest value of waveform, to the peak value of waveform, to the maximum value of waveform. These kinds of a value is called as a amplitude. Usually it is in terms of volts or sometimes it can be in a amperes. Second one is a frequency. So the frequency is a number of cycle completes per second and measured in hertz, means how many cycle number completes in a 1 second. How many cycle, let's say this cycle is starting from here and ends with the here, one positive part and one negative part. This is a complete cycle and this number of cycles completed in a 1 second, that is called as a frequency. Then time period, it is time taken to complete a one cycle, is measured in second. So it is a time to complete this one cycle, positive half and negative half. The timing to complete this kind of a waveform, it is called as a time period. Then next one is a phase. Phase tells the position of wave relative to the another wave, actual where it is lies, it is called as a phase. Then the next one is a wavelength. Wavelength is a distance between two identical points in a wave. It's measured in meter. So this is one point, this is one point. These are two identical point, distance is called as a wavelength. Suppose we can take this one, this one. This is also called as a wavelength. So this point to this point, this is also called as a wavelength. So these are the some terms related to the waveform. Again, I want to clear one term here, that is a relation between the frequency and time. So the frequency is always a reciprocal of time, or a time is always a reciprocal of frequency. Hence f is equals to 1 upon t or t equals to 1 upon f. This relation is important in waveform terms. So the next is a active and passive components. So in a electronics component, there are mainly divided into the two types. The very first is the active component and second is the passive component. So what is meant by active component? So active component always required external power to start itself. That is called as a active component. And passive components, the passive components does not require external power to start itself, that is called as a passive component. If you can see some examples of active and passive components, so the active components are a transistor, integrated circuit, LED, diode. Integrated circuit we can also call as a ICs. Then passive components are transformer, inductor, capacitor, resistor. Means the transistor, IC, LED, diode, these kinds of electronics component require the external power supply to start itself. It's called as an active component. And like a resistor, capacitor, inductor, transformer, these are the passive component which does not require the external power supply to start itself. This is the main difference between the active component and passive component. So this is only for today's. In the next video we will conducting a session on the color code, symbol, application and specification of a register. What is in by a register, their application, their symbol and color coding, how we can find the value of this particular register in upcoming session. Thank you for watching.